One of my theme songs that I've written is called The Journey. It talks about the opportunities I thought I was going to go for and how things were going to work out. When it didn't come, I realized that wasn't the plan. And if I had gone that way, how much more I would have missed. So it's kind of been my theme song of life. We have a phrase in Scotland that says, what's for you will no go by you. What's for you will not go by you. If it's meant to be, it'll be just watch for those opportunities and grab them when they come.
Welcome to Second Verse, the podcast where indie artists share their stories of coming back to music and where we celebrate the messy, meaningful journey of chasing your creative calling. I'm Becky Boyland, singer-songwriter, story brand certified brand messaging expert, and web developer. Like many of my guests, I've taken a winding path in my music. Now I help artists step confidently into their second act, both creatively and professionally. Today's guest is Bob Strachan, an award-winning singer-songwriter from Scotland with a story that's equal parts heart, humor, and hard-won insight. Bob first found success in the early 2000s, but life pulled him away from the music business until lockdown reignited his passion. Since then, he's written for film and TV, performed internationally, and even gone viral for a Johnny Cash-style cover of Gangsta's Paradise. He's also a pastor, a producer, and a proud neurodivergent creative whose personal healing has fueled a powerful musical resurgence. In this conversation, Bob opens up about grief, rediscovery, faith, and why being good at what you do isn't enough. You also have to be good to be around. This one's got depth, laughter, and plenty of truth bombs. Let's dive into Bob Strachan's Second Verse. Welcome, Bob. Thank you for joining Second Verse.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's good to be here. Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you, and I love what I've been learning about your story. There are so many things that I know are going to be really fun to talk about. Let me just start at the beginning. You grew up around music, and it clearly was a part of your life for a long time. Tell me how everything got started with you in music.
Okay, so it goes way back to childhood. My dad was the song leader for the church I grew up in. So he had a piano in the house, in the old house, and you know, there's music all the time. There's always times people coming around and playing, and he could just pick up about anything. He even got the saw with a violin bow, and he would play the saw, harmonicas, flutes, and he was a good fiddler as well. But he never could get the guitar. He just didn't have the fingers for the guitar. But piano, everything else he could do. So I'm guessing I kind of inherited some of that talent from him. That was basically the beginning of music. It was always around. And then going to the dances, growing up, the Scottish country dances, and then folks coming by when we would visit the ancestral home of my mother's folks over in the islands. There was always folks playing an accordion or some Celtic music or folk music. It was a great upbringing. A lot centered around music. I remember sitting on my dad's knee and sometimes beside him while he played for church and things like that. There was always something going on.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Now you mentioned the islands. Whereabouts? Not like I'm going to know everywhere, but I spent a week or so in Knoydart Peninsula.
Oh, yep.
I just loved it so much. It was so beautiful.
It's very similar. It's the island called Gia. It's spelled Gigha. And I usually tell people, so my mum lives on a little island off the west coast. And folks are like, that's Hawaii. I'm like, no, it's a little island. Not many people know about it. But those that do, it's strange. They have very much an affinity to that island. A lot of people's families have exploded and they end up coming back to find their ancestry on this little island just off the entire coastline. I was privileged to have that kind of music for like the Western folk music as well as growing up in the northeast, to where it was the northeastern stuff of Scotland. So two very different cultures, but very, very much connected by fishing and certainly by music.
And I think that's really exciting because folks who maybe aren't familiar with Scotland would not realize that there would be that diversity and a variety of styles. Even throughout the United States, where I am, there are so many different styles, some that have a similar heritage and come from a common background, and others that diverge and come from so many different places. We tend to think that there might just be one or two different versions. So I think it's exciting that you're able to bring that into your music and introduce your listeners to different variations and types.
Absolutely. I did a Western concept track the other week and I posted it in a group for some feedback, and somebody said, I love the country feel as well as it's really Celtic. And I'm like, you just summed up my personality. So there's definitely that influence. And as you say, when people say Celtic music, it's like saying country music or pop music. There's so much diversity in it. You've got Scottish dance music, which is usually centered around an accordion or a fiddle as the lead instrument. But then you have other things called bothy ballads and mouth music. I'll refrain from using the Gaelic terms, but there's mouth music. And then way up in the islands, they had call and response. The minister would sing a psalm, the first line of the psalm in Gaelic, and then the congregation would repeat it, but usually slower. These Gaelic services lasted about 3 hours. So, but just so much diversity in it. And a lot of it based around the pentatonic scale. You're going to write a piece of Scottish folk music, a lot of it is based around that pentatonic scale, which a lot of cultures' music is kind of based around. That's why things like Amazing Grace lend itself so well to the Scottish culture, because it's in that pentatonic scale. Obviously it's the famous tune on the bagpipe, probably the most famous bagpipe tune out there. We've got the bagpipes, the penny whistles. There's a lot of Irish connections there as well. Some things are inherently Irish, some things are inherently Scottish, but there's definitely that blend. Then we bring the mandolin, not really a typical Scottish instrument, but you do find it a lot now in Celtic music. So you see that bluegrass kind of crossover where bluegrass has brought the banjo, and now the banjo has been brought into Celtic music. And then we have what we call as a baran, or as the Americans say, a bodhran, which it just makes me, every time people say, no, it's a baran, it's a baran. It's a Gaelic word.
We're very sorry.
It's okay. We forgive you for Braveheart too, by the way. But these instruments are very much traditional, and you find them in both Scottish and Irish folk music, because the islanders crossed paths with each other. A lot of the culture does cross over, but even with Irish, you've got the Irish style, you've got Irish country, you've got Scottish folk, you've got the dance, you've got Bird the mouth music, you've got pipe music, the walking songs. And stop me if I'm rambling, but
I feel like I'm getting a great education here, so I'm just enjoying it.
Well, that's good. That's good. We have what's called a walking song, and it's not just like walking along the road, it's spelt walking. The women would sing these songs as they walked the tweed. They would sit around on a table. Once the tweed had been woven, they would put it on the table and use certain liquids, I'll not say what they were, that were used to treat the tweed and help make it waterproof. And so they would make this motion, put it on the table, bring it back, and pass it on to the next one. So it was forward, back, around, and then this way, whatever way they did it, grab the next one. The way they did the walking would make the beat. It was very much synonymous with the ladies singing these walking songs. There's just so much in the culture. And of course, we've got reels and jigs and strathspeys, and I'll stop there.
I love it because just that concept of almost a utilitarianism for it, but at the same time to make it fun, and so that it's not just utter drudgery. And it's fascinating how those songs and those styles continue through the culture well past the time when they were a necessity. But it clearly was a beautiful thing that people latched onto and connected with. And so now we are able to rediscover that, or at least on this side of the pond, discover it for the first time as we get exposed to new music by writers and creators like you, who can introduce us to these sounds or even help us to make the connections of, oh, that sounds kind of familiar, but I don't know the history. I don't know what that's about. And that's just so exciting and so fun that there's so much more behind it than just, this has this familiarity and it kind of makes me think of the British Isles, or something like that. And there's so much more to it. And as we talked about, so much more variety, which is super exciting. But let me go back to, you then had a bit of a music career. You can either go all the way back, because I know there's also some stuff in your childhood that we want to talk about. But if you wanted to go ahead into your early music career and then bring us back to how you were out of that and then came back around.
Sure. So music has always been a big part of things with me at school and things like that. And studying music at school and doing classical training, I was always in the orchestra, band, folk group, or choir, or whatever we were doing. I was always in the middle of it, doing music of some sort, learning everything I could about it and writing songs. And, right back to a very early age, I wrote. They weren't very good, but, it was a start. Some of the teachers loved it because it was written by one of the students about the class. So it's one of those things, if you write a song for your mum, she's going to love it regardless. You're not writing it for the next big pop anthem. It's a personal thing. I learned more and developed a passion for country music, really. And I think, there's a lot of the Scottish things. And there was a point where I got bored with the Scottish stuff because that's what everybody was doing. And so, this country was exciting. It was Johnny Cash, and it was kind of new to me. So there's lots of discovering different genres. And through school, that had a big influence in my teens as well. And then so when I went to university, I was out gigging and doing things anywhere we could do a gig. And we had a little band, and we kept on writing and stuff. And then I started writing gospel music. I'd been out of church for many years and got back in church and started writing gospel music and connected with a couple of people within Nashville and around. I would sing my songs in different places. Through that, I was able to get a couple of cuts in gospel music through some people. That was really, really, really cool. One of the guys I was pitching to and sending CDs back in the day, and even mini discs to, he sadly died. And the guy that took over didn't really want to know. So that ended that. Then we fell in, there's not a really easy way to say this, but into a very cultic group where I felt I had to abandon a lot of things, abandon songwriting and things like that. The folks in church would kind of appreciate some of the songs I was writing, but if I did them out with the other groups of people, the churches that we fellowshiped with, they would sit there like this. All the way through I was singing. If I brought my guitar to any fellowships or anything like that, it would make sure they knew what I was singing so that it was going to be approved. I couldn't sing one of my own songs because this was the devil's music, and anything after 1922 was clearly the devil's music. It was contemporary Christian music, and I'm like, you don't even know the definition of what you're talking about. The stuff you're singing has got a beat. So, it was just this ignorance about what music was. I'll not go into the discussions I had because it makes them look very ignorant, which they were. So I kind of fell away from pushing things or trying to do things with that for a long while. Still kind of wrote, but only when the mood took me. And then during lockdown in 2020, we had to close the church and there wasn't much else going on. And I'm just thinking, okay, they've done the garden. We've walked today. What else can we do? Because I like to be busy. I saw on Facebook there was an art group that was doing this art challenge. So I joined that. And we did a couple of art things. We had to make something out of things around the house. So I got wax and I made this little figure. And I enjoyed that. And it was kind of cool. But it wasn't fulfilling. After a couple of days, I thought, what did I really enjoy doing that I could do? And it just came to me, go back to songwriting. And so I got on Facebook and looked up every songwriting group I could find and joined them. Some of them were absolutely terrible, and other ones I thought, no, this is actually got some really good stuff in it. And there was a couple that were doing Zoom meetings. One of these guys was talking about a songwriting course. I thought that would be really good. I would like to learn some new stuff and see where I'm at. It was a 6-month kind of thing, on and off. I was challenged all the time, and we would go through the songs, and it showed me the things I was doing really well that I instinctively knew, but I wasn't doing them consistently. So that helped me is like, well, this song is right. You've done everything right in this song, but this song, you've just thrown it all to the wind. And I'm like, see, that makes sense. So that helped me kind of get a focus back on there and get back into what I really wanted to do. And so I was churning out songs, and I was trying to, at least get a song completely finished to do for Sunday morning, even though we were just our family by ourselves in church. We were broadcasting, but at least it was something that I could encourage people to do. And I started sharing them. And then I started sharing songs on my Facebook, and people started enjoying that. And I started improving and figuring out what the next stage was. And so just these little things fell into place with different people that I met to bring me. And then somebody said, well, have you ever thought about putting your music in film and TV? And I was like, no. He's like, well, do you watch TV? I'm like, yes. And is there music in that? Yes. Who do you think writes that music? Huh. That's a point. So that's what then just led on to there. And that's, where I'm at now.
I love how, even though it was a challenge for all of us to kind of retreat from the world, by being driven online and opened up the opportunity for us to find people and learn about things like that we would have been so limited if we don't live around people who have this experience. So it's really sort of an exciting thing. And I think that's a common thread for a number of us independent artists, that this was an opportunity to do a lot of things that we wouldn't have been able to do before. So I know that was true for me too.
Oh, absolutely. There's people I met through lockdown and on Zoom calls and in network meetings that I would have never got past their gatekeepers. Some of them I'm really good friends with now, because we were all in the same boat. These are major players in the music business that have been around. I know them on first name terms and can message them. Then it comes to the point where they're actually messaging me, asking what I think of this song that they're doing. I'm just like, I'm sorry, what? As I was saying to my wife, I said, such as just messaged me and asked for a review on this song that they're doing. You know who this is? She's like, well, obviously he respects your opinion. So I did. I gave my opinion, wrote back. He's like, yep, great. That's exactly what I was looking for. And thank you. It kind of helped me sit at the big boys table, not in an arrogant way, but once I started learning and could realize and started seeing those things and learning from these guys, being able to sit and know what they're talking about, being able to write and to have reviews and then started putting things into song contests and getting 5-star ratings on them. So I'm like, hey, you know what? I can sit at the big boys table now. That was a big encouragement for me to do that. So yeah, lockdown was hard. And there's other sides of that wasn't so great. But for music, it was.
This is also such a different time in the industry. The opportunities you have now, you would probably never have had then. I think that's even more exciting. I feel that myself. So yeah, I think that's just incredible.
I totally agree. One of my theme songs that I've written is called The Journey. It's basically about that, written a long time ago. Before this happened, it talks about the opportunities I thought I was going to go for and how things were going to work out. When it didn't come, I realized that wasn't the plan. And if I'd gone that way, how much more I would have missed. So it's kind of been my theme song of life. We have a phrase in Scotland, but it says, "What's for you, I'll no gone by you. What's for you will not go by you." If it's meant to be, it'll be just watch for those opportunities and grab them when they come.
I'm going to quilt that. Put that up behind me.
What's for you, I'll no gone by you.
I love that too, because so many times we'll say things happen for a reason. The challenge for me is things happen for a reason. And sometimes we're dumb and we make stupid mistakes. But at the same time, if you're keeping your eye out for those blessings that are going to come and are just ready, even if nothing's happening right now, you won't miss it if you're ready. And I think that's a beautiful, elevated Scottish way to say that.
Thank you.
Now, you're a pastor as well, right?
Yes.
And I'm a music minister, so I understand that amazing opportunity to do things with your music and what God has called you to. And then also have these opportunities to do broader messages and create music that has lots of different purposes. It just makes me more excited to make more and more music. Anything else you'd like to share about that?
That was one of my things when I started back on this journey, writing songs for our church. People were talking about, get into worship and write for the global church and stuff like that. I'm like, there's not really any such thing. We're local churches here. That's what needs to happen. People asked, I think it was Matt Redman, how do you write these songs for the global church? He says, I don't. I write them for my church, and they just happen to go global. And that resonated with me, that this was a calling at that time to write music for our church. I tried to reach out to some people and write with them, and some things just didn't happen. I was like, oh, okay. I'd met a lot of people, but I wasn't meeting people in my section. I knew a lot of people in pop and rap, but I wasn't meeting people in this. So I knew a lot of people in the business. The genre I was trying to get into, then I found out was probably not the best thing to get into, just for various reasons. But it was an experience, and so that became my thing, was writing songs for our church. So I would write worship songs, I would write a song to go with the message. So if, whatever it was going to be, the challenge was to take that message, because I kind of knew what I was going to speak on, and take the points that I was going to make and turn it into a 3.5-minute song that folks remember. Even if they don't remember a 30-minute message, they might go away with the chorus of the song, which would have the crux of what we were talking about. And so that became the driving force of it, was to do that. And I came out with some really good songs. Some I just did for the one time, and others that I've kept on in my catalogue. But it really fueled that passion to keep going and to do things. And through the process of the last couple of years, we really sat down as a family and started to come together again, because there'd been a lot of issues in our family unit with the cultic mindset. It was hard for us to start to walk away from that, because we lost friends. This was over a period of about 10 years. But lots of things happened that really helped us move forward and get to a place within our family that's really great, and our church is really great, putting away a lot of these cultic ideas and really getting to a place where it's a family. We're there just as a family, and stop being so pharisaical about things. It's okay to listen to Johnny Cash. There's things out there. It's, learning to say no. There were just so many things that was there. One of the things we were expected to do as part of this cult-like church was to just do everything for anybody that asked. So we basically had to drop everything and run. And that's what was the big dividing thing in our family, because the kids were left at home while we went and looked after somebody else's kids. Our kids were getting neglected. I'm like, no, this is not right. The scripture clearly says that if I'm to be a pastor, I'm to take care of my own house first. Therefore, my kids come first before anybody else's. My family does. I'm first and foremost a family man rather than a pastor. And then realized when Jesus sent out the disciples, he told them, he said, look, when you go into a place, find who is worthy and stay with them and let your peace come upon it. But if they're not worthy, take your peace back, shake off the dust of your feet and move on. And so that was a big thing for me. I was like, wow, we can say no, because if people are just wasting our time and we don't see that they're worthy to receive the ministry, then we are to move on to the next person. If we spend the time casting our pearls before swine with them, we are robbing from the person that we're supposed to be going to. And that really resonated with me, both in church life and family life, but also musically. There were some people that I could waste my time with, but there was other people that really did either need my help or could help me. So to prove myself worthy to them and prove who people were worthy to me. So that focusing and really realizing time is precious and who I work with and who I do for is very specific now, that I make those decisions because time is precious and we want to do the best job that we can and not waste the opportunity that we have.
Sometimes the greatest maturity in this whole process is the unlearning of the things that we've been taught for years and years. And I remember early on in my journey, learning a lot of viewpoints that were not quite to that degree, but as I look back now, I realize how unhealthy and unhelpful they were to me. Many of them I was able to quickly shed when I went off to study Bible and educational ministries and have a completely different perspective. But every once in a while, something will come up and I realize that, that sort of took root. And I start to see the insidiousness of that or how that may have impacted other people that I know. It is so difficult when it has all these relationship connections and has that impact of losing friends and essentially a spiritual family in the process. It's a maturing and it's a thing that is so hard, but so helpful and so important to do.
It certainly is. And that's key, to just follow those paths. Not that you're making your own way, but you're following the true way, if you like, not man's way. And that's what it becomes, is we're following this set of rules, given commandments that Jesus faced in his time with the Pharisees. And there really is not much difference to what's going on in a lot of churches today. So it's been a freeing thing. And it really brings true that when Jesus said, you shall know the truth and the truth shall make you free. A lot of people quote it as set you free, but it's not, because set free, we could be brought under that lie again. But when we're made free by the truth, that lie has no bearing on us anymore. It's the same thing for imposter syndrome or whatever. I'm not musical, I'm not artistic. A lot of these things were put on us as kids or whoever. Oh, you'll never be able to make it in this. These are all lies that have been told to us that we have to shed to be able to do that. I think that's one of the things when I come to realize that, I can call myself a pro, because I can write with the pros. I can do the things that I need to do. I've been recognized as such. And it's like, hey, that's what I am. And, and there's always that little niggles at, well, are you really? But, I don't think it's an arrogant thing. I think when you're sitting at that table, you have to believe that you have the right to sit at that table.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it really is also defining the direction that we want to have. I am a songwriter. I am, a guitarist. My first instrument was trumpet. And so I was a trumpeter. And that was easy to say for a really long time. But when I started playing guitar, I was the trumpeter who's playing guitar. And I remember the point, I don't remember exactly when it happened, but I remember the feeling of when I realized I am a guitarist. And I could say that and own that and recognize that. But now I realize part of that maturity is I'm going to say it and own it just a little bit before I feel it. And that way I know that I'm actually on the right trajectory, because I also have enough experience in other jobs to remember when I was faking it till I made it, just like everybody is. and still had the title for those things. And so I might as well confer that title on myself, that this is the thing that I am because this is what I do. Songwriters write, guitarists guitar.
Absolutely. I love that. Exactly it.
We'll be back with more after the break. Second Verse is sponsored by Attitude Creativity. Many indie music artists don't have a website that grows their audience and reflects who they are, so they get lost in the noise of streaming. Marketing and brand messaging with Attitude Creativity helps boost your brand and build a site that hits all the right notes. You want to be an artist who stands out from the crowd, and to do that, you need your music to be heard. If your website doesn't reflect who you are or make an impact, you feel like a singer who's been handed a pair of drumsticks instead of a mic. You deserve a website and brand messaging you can be proud of, and that doesn't take time away from your music. As an artist like you, I understand how overwhelming websites and marketing can be. And that's why, putting on my other creative hat, I put my decades of marketing and development experience to work for you. You'll no longer have to apologize for your website. You'll look and feel like a professional with a custom story branded website you can be proud of. And right now, you can get a head start with my free downloadable EPK blueprint and start building your electronic press kit to promote your music. Head to attitudecreativity.com/blueprint to get your copy. That's Attitude, ATTITUDE, creativity.com/blueprint. So let's go back a bit. I know that when you were a child, you also had a very difficult loss. Mm-hmm. And yet now music has helped you to really grow from that and make a reconnection. So share a bit about that.
Yeah, sure. Well, 2 weeks before my 9th birthday, my mum came into my room and told me my dad was going to die. I didn't know the details until I was much older. It's about, I think it was 16 or 17 when Mum actually told me all the details. But Dad had been infected through a product called Factor VIII because he was a haemophiliac. Hemophilia is a blood disease, which means you don't really clot. So if he cut himself, it was off to the hospital. There wasn't any other option. And so there's a lot of things that they hadn't before. There was cryoprecipitate, and then there's the thing was called Factor VIII. It could be used as a prophylactic. So if he was going to go out to do work in the garden, fishing or woodwork, he could take the injection of Factor VIII, which meant if he did cut himself, it would clot. This was a miracle thing. He was pretty much going to guarantee to cut or nick himself in some way, and this would help. So anyway, he was injecting himself with this, but then come to find out this was infected with HIV. And there was lots of different blood products infected with HIV and Hep C and Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease and some other things like that. Dad had also contracted Hep B in the early 70s through much the same process. This was a massive scandal and still is one of the biggest cover-ups in our health system. And we're still fighting it. Last May, we won a massive victory by having the report published about what all happened. So that brought a whole new light to things and really found out all the things that happened, and sadly all the people have died and are continuing to die through this sad thing. And so just trying to get the government to take responsibility for these things, because it went from the 70s till 1995 they were still giving out these infected blood products. And it's really scary because I had a surgery in 1995. I didn't need a blood transfusion, but I had a surgery in 1995. That really put it in perspective. That, had I been a haemophiliac, I would have had to have a blood transfusion. There's a massive possibility that it might have infected me as well. But Dad was very careful, and Mum, being a registered nurse, was very careful with everything that they did. So she had a lot to do with stopping any infection from him, even though he didn't know that he had been infected. And from the time he was infected till the time he actually found out was about the space of a year. And they didn't actually tell him for 6 months. And so he was very mad at them, as you can imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
When he found out about that, he didn't have any knowledge of how it was transferred. So he didn't hug us. He wouldn't touch us because he didn't know if he could spread this. So I don't remember this, but there was evidently a time where my dad couldn't hug me. And that just really hit me. I don't remember it. I must have blocked it out. But I can't imagine being 5 or 6 when he was infected and not understanding why Dad couldn't give me a hug. He passed away just before my 9th birthday. That was the day my world fell apart. I didn't know a lot about it at the time. Knowing what he died of didn't change the fact. Mum kind of just told me that he died of kidney failure, which he did because the cryoprecipitate he was given in the 70s wrecked his kidney, so he had to have dialysis as well. So it wasn't a lie. She just left out some details, which I'm actually really glad she did, because this was the 80s and the stigma and everything that was attached to it was really bad. And then, later in life, finding out more about it, finding out that one of the ladies in our church was one of the medical secretaries and decided to tell everybody in the church that Dad had been infected with HIV, but not tell them how he got infected. And so that would have spread like wildfire. And I think at some point, Mum would have realised that, this would have got out in the community and that would have affected our lives. And she didn't get the support she needed. And so I didn't understand, but we left. We went to New Zealand and then we came back, and then we went to Canada, and then we came back and we moved down to the Stirling area to be closer to Mum's parents because she was getting support from them. Then the year after that, my grandparents in Peterhead passed away, my dad's parents. After my dad died, my grandfather just shut down. He never really interacted with me much. He just sat and watched TV when he came to ours. My dad died, and then my grandfather just reclused. So it was like losing two of them at that point. So, it was a massive trauma. Growing up without a father there, in hindsight, the move to Stirling was really the right thing to do. My mum's dad became my surrogate father. Here I am being raised by this ex-serviceman, ex-army, been through the Second World War and everything like that. So a lot of the ways I have are like boomer ways because I was raised by him. So in a lot of ways I was raised as a boomer, not as a Gen Xer. There's some things that I do that people are like, my dad does that. I'm like, well, okay. But it was really important for me because I realized how important it is for a boy to have a father figure in their life, whether it is their actual dad or not, but have someone that they can look up to, someone they can get advice from, someone that they can model themselves on. And especially if we bring that to a spiritual concept, if we're trying to look to God as a father and we have no one that we can look to as a physical father, whoever we look to as a physical father, whatever attributes they have are how we're going to see God. If we have a terrible father, we have a difficult time relating to God as a father. But if we have someone that demonstrates characteristics of love, compassion, discipline, order, and hard work, then we have a better relationship with God as a father because we can see our actual fathers and model that. So I was very fortunate to have my grandfather as my second dad. When he passed away, it was like another kick in the chest because now all of them were gone. He did survive to see both my kids, which was amazing, and he finally was proud of me for my choice in occupation or my calling. At my grandmother's funeral, I was able to take the funeral, and he realized that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Things changed with him as well because we kind of had a little bit where we weren't really on the same wavelength, with the church and stuff like that. But anyway, he was a great man and really helped me. And so coming back to the music helped me heal. The biggest thing in that was writing songs about my dad or to my dad and about my grandfather as well, connecting with them through music and just having that opportunity to write, to sing it, to cry, to pour my heart out, whatever it is. Some songs I've written and I've thrown them away. I don't usually do that. I usually keep everything that I write, even whether it's rubbish or not, because maybe sometime there'll be something good in it. But sometimes these were just moments of an outpouring, a bit like David did with the Psalms. And just a moment of outpouring that this is me just singing a song, and that was it. That was for that moment to move on to the next thing. But there's been a couple of songs that I've kept and performed for other people. One I got to do at the Bluebird Cafe in Nashville last year. Apparently everybody was in tears. Somebody came up to me afterwards and said they'd lost their father a couple of years ago. Me telling me the story and singing that song really helped them that night. So I'm like, that's great. That's exactly what I love to hear. It should be to help and to bring someone a little bit of happiness or closure or joy or encouragement from the music. And that's what really gets me going.
Even when there's a specificity about your experience, that just adds to the authenticity so that someone who is going through something similar, even if the details don't quite line up, they will get that experience. And that's what's so powerful about being able to draw on all of that. And I love that you were able to then speak to your dad and get all of this out to him in a way that you couldn't do when he was here. But there's no wonder that it's so powerful and would move so many people.
I really was mad a lot of times. And I think I had, rightfully so, to be mad that he was stolen from me because it should never have happened. And then to think about what we could have done as musicians, the things that we could have done together. Mm-hmm. And now with the technology we have, he was big into tech. He'd sit and program stuff. So I was introduced to computers at a very early age as well because of Dad. There's a lot of things that I think we could have done with that. Sometimes that really hurts to think what might have been. I can't change that fact. And maybe because of that has fueled my passion for music. Maybe I wouldn't be doing that. I don't know. There's lots of ifs and buts and what could be. For the most part, it's been helpful. The biggest thing that came to me is through a support scheme for the infected blood scandal, and finally through prompting, put in a self-referral. As a psychology graduate, you kind of have that prideful thing, so I can fix myself. You really can't. It's just like, it's not going to happen. And as a pastor too, you're like, wow, he's supposed to have it all together. And then, yeah, I don't. So there was a couple of years of darkness coming out of the cult and stresses, putting on weight because of all these things, going through interviews again about the tainted blood and stuff, and really just coming back to music to try and get temporary healing. But the thing that really got me was this guy, the psychologist, and we were talking about things, and he just brought it in summary. He said, it seems like you're looking for a point to tell your dad bye. I said, yeah, because I don't remember the last time I saw him. I remember what he said to me. When Mum asked me if I wanted to go into the hospital, I said no, I didn't want to go and see him. I couldn't. I don't know why, I just didn't. But he was so doped up on morphine, there's a good chance he wouldn't have known we were there. But at the same time, when your son comes in the room, he's there. It's just something there. Anyway, that transpired. So that was a lot of regrets there, especially hitting milestones where my son got to the age I was, where I got to the age my dad was. Things like that kind of resonated. The psychologist the other day said, have you ever told him goodbye? Just actually told him goodbye. And I said, no, I didn't. So I went in myself and I pictured Dad with Jesus. And I said, Dad, bye. But I'll see you again. And just everything just left. It just, all the darkness, the hurt, the regret, just everything just went, and it just, I just sank in my chair, and I couldn't believe what had just happened. And all these years of all these things, all I was looking for was that point to say goodbye to Dad. And I did. And, as we believe, it's not goodbye. And that's an encouragement to know that. Whether he can see us or whatever it is, I sometimes pray and I'm like, hey, Jesus, will you tell Dad? It's just kind of like, I don't know if he does or not, but I'd like to think he does. So you can just imagine everybody stand there and, okay, I got a message for John Strachan. I was it's like mail call, just the way my brain works. But
I think that's great.
So yeah, there's the song "Holes in the Floor of Heaven." It's like the concept is there, which is a great song. I love that song. That just became a massive thing, and I just sat and bathed, I would say, and just basked in that feeling. And since then, I don't know what has happened, but I have been churning out songs like nothing before. My production has just suddenly leveled up. I never used to be able to harmonize with myself. I could harmonize with anybody else, but I never used to be able to, like when I was doing tracking my own vocals, I never used to be able to do my own harmonies unless I was bass. I could do lead vocals and bass, not a problem. But tenor and alto parts, never could do it with myself. I could do it with other people, but never myself. This last week, I was doing something and I was doing some harmonies. I thought I'll just throw them in and then I'll use Melodyne to fix them and then I'll go back in and sing them the way I need to. I went in, I was doing jazz harmonies and seventh harmonies and things like that. I'm just like, where is this coming from? And it was just amazing. And it's because that weight, that healing just went, and suddenly my music has leveled up as well. So it's been that cycle that music helped me heal, but also the healing has helped the music too.
That is so amazing. Those messages are definitely getting through.
Maybe.
Jesus is passing on those messages. We'll talk about some of the projects you've got going on right now. You've got some exciting stuff on the way.
I do. I've been composing music for different projects and doing a children's project, which I'm really excited about. And so I kind of watch this space for that one. I'm writing more albums for Sync, doing more Sync placements and connecting with so many more people in town. We've got an opportunity to establish a music cafe, community center. So this is really exciting for me to be able to bring live music to our wee town. And a lot of people are coming out the woodwork. We've got a songwriters night started every month. And just people that I never thought would come along. They're starting to come along and writing songs. And it's great to be able to pass that knowledge onto them and be able to connect. And I hope to build on the connection between Jedburgh and Nashville, because I already have friends there in music, gospel music and country music. I spent a good while there back in November and made some really great connections there, made really good friends. And so building on those to kind of bring more music, not just the country music, but all kinds of things. But people really do love country music here. So it'd be really cool to kind of do that. So, looking at the live music scene, I do the old folks' homes as well, and the care homes and the assisted living facilities. I love going in to play for them, because you have a captive audience and nobody is on their phone. And they love it.
That is true.
They might be asleep, but they're not on their phone. So I'm okay with that. I mean, when I sing Jim Reeves and Don Williams, I used to put my kids to sleep with that. Apparently the old folks do the same thing. But they come alive, especially when I do rock and roll or some classics from the 60s or these kind of things. They absolutely you see it in their eyes. They could be sitting there drooling in their soup all day, but you get up and sing a song and music just transforms them. That part of their brain is still so very active. They know all the words. They sing along with it. Some of them even get up and dance. There was one I was doing, Stand By Me. And one of the residents took this as a personal challenge and literally came and stood by me. I absolutely love doing that. My gigs are usually centered around the community for the old folks and these kind of things. I just love it because it gives me a kick that I'm actually making a difference, not just singing to a bunch of people that are having a meal and not really caring if it's the radio or live music at all. And of course, writing for myself and wanting to do a lot more personal projects this year, as well as the sync stuff, but actually do stuff for me as well. And maybe also another television appearance this year, but that's still in discussion.
That's amazing. I love that. So where can people find out more about you? And besides, obviously, finding you at the local rest homes?
There you go. I'm just going around to see which one I want to go to. Which one's got the best vibe? I'll tell the kids. So just Google Bob Strachan and it'll come up with stuff. I don't have a lot of stuff on Spotify. I've only got about 3 or 4 songs on Spotify and streaming at the minute, mainly because I've focused on pitching to others and doing for sync. So didn't want to release things, obviously, because if you're wanting to get cuts and things like that, you don't want to have it as a first release. Hopefully in time, we'll start building some more things. I've got 2 songs in production right now for release in the next couple of weeks that I'm very excited about. My YouTube probably has the most of different music and little shorts and videos and fun things. I have Facebook as well. That's where my main follower base is. I went viral with a Johnny Cash version of Gangster's Paradise a couple of years ago, which was amazing. But trying to keep up with everybody, doing this every week, kind of just ended up burning out. Because at that point, I didn't realize I was autistic. I did appreciate the ADHD, but I didn't really know I was autistic as well. So that was news, but not apparently to my family and to other people. It does make a lot of sense about my growing up and things that I did back then. And I've just embraced it, not to make it part of my personality, but it's who I am, and accepting that fact and then using that fact to plow into music. It is a special interest, and I can sit here for 4 hours and do production, sit and listen to all the intricate frequencies and utilize those things that my brain does that other people's doesn't. And so it makes me have really good ears for listening to things and knowing when frequencies are clashing. I might not always know what to do about it, but that's why I have a good mate that's an engineer. He doesn't hear what I hear, but he knows what to do. So I tell him what I'm hearing, he knows what to do, and he fixes it. It's like, yeah, that's it. So again, working with different people with different skill sets is a great thing. And of course, now we've gone on an ADHD tangent, and I completely forgot what we were talking about. Projects. That's what it was.
and it's totally fine, because I also was recently diagnosed with ADHD. Woo! And it gives you the freedom to play to your strengths, to play to your brain strengths, and also to allow your brain to have some downtime and do some other things so that you can come back and lean into that focus. So yeah, totally get it. I think that was actually a perfect and wonderful tangent, because I think that's also a feature and not a bug with a lot of other artists that I have known. and how many of us are neurodivergent
Yep.
because that's just how we're wired. It should, of course, come out in creativity. It really makes a lot of sense.
It does.
So I think it's important for people to recognize, especially those who are artists or wanting to be artists who may not yet have made that decision to lean into it. Like we were talking about here of coming to music after life has gone different directions, and a little bit of that fear sometimes as well. I don't know, maybe this is just a silly whim or some tangent I want to follow,
Sure.
but the reality is that it's just that gnawing creativity saying, I need to get out there and I need to get in front of people so they can also hear their stories in my music or see their stories in my art. And so I think it's a beautiful thing.
I appreciate it. It is. And I think that's why I am at the point I'm at now, is embracing those things. Also, the medication helps. That has been a massive game changer for me because, like I said, after that Johnny Cash thing, I just burnt out and it was so overwhelming. And again, lots of other things going on with the inquiry and stuff like that. But just being able to know what my strengths and weaknesses are, and then being able to accept myself for this, and this is who I am, and be real with yourself. I think that's such an important thing, is just to be real with you. It's like, this is the way that we are created, and the world needs creatives. It's that whole square peg kind of thing. We are designed to be creative, and that's part of the ADHD autistic thing, is that we can be creatives. And although there's different places on the spectrum, high functioning, low functioning, different things like that, each of us is there, and we have our own talents. We have our own little special interests. We need the artists. We need that, and our family is quite diverse, even within neurodivergence. We're neurodivergent diverse. So my daughter is an amazing artist. She really is, and that's her creativity. I've never really gotten into art. I did enjoy it. I was quite good at it, but it was never my passion. Music is my thing. And then my son, he's really gifted at doing accents and voices and things like that. And I want to take credit for that, for doing them around him. But he's sometimes leveling up what I can do. And it's great to see your kids that you've given them the start and then they've just taken it and run with it. It's like, wow, what they're doing. My wife is also getting into that. And having grown up in that kind of mindset that I was talking about, these kind of things were frowned upon for her. So she's now finally able to embrace her creativity and do art and music and do other things. Also, she can play the keyboard. It was mainly for church. But, as a family, we're able to embrace our neurodivergence, and this is who we are. We are a creative family. Yes, we're going to go to Comic-Con. Yes, I'm going to dress up as Captain Caveman. Of course. So there's it just, that's part of whoever we are. If we're an artist or if we're a singer or a guitarist or, and whatever it is we are, is just embracing our strengths and weaknesses and finding that happy place within us that sometimes our special interests can actually be a job and we can do what we love. That's what I encourage the kids to do. It's like, well, if you love this and you're good at it, do it as a job. Find out how you can make money from this rather than get stuck in an office doing something you hate and only getting this hobby that you do on weekends, and then sometimes work gets in the way and you can't do your hobby. You're going to be miserable. So do something that you love, be good at it, and get paid for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm glad that we're really at a point now in culture where we're starting to accept that more. I think for many generations, it was go do that thing, make good money, even if you do hate it. And that was expected. And the reality is, if we celebrate our artists and give them the opportunity to make a living from it, we'll get more art and there will be more joy. Absolutely. And so much more beauty out in the world. And I think that is good living.
It is. It really is. I just echo what you're saying there because, for me, it was like, finish high school, go to university, get a job, but realizing the struggles I had in school and university with being neurodivergent and having no support that way and, not realizing why and being brought down and being made fun of and not fitting in. But now realizing that, hey, this is why I didn't fit in. But I have found my tribe. I have found my family that I do fit in with. Most creatives are neurodivergent of some sort. And a lot of people that I work with, and they're like, I think I might be neurodivergent as well. I'm like, you think? And one of the things that somebody said to me that when I was in the States, they said, do you really think I'm neurodivergent? I said, yeah, you are. They said, what makes you think that? I said, the fact that we are actually friends. Because all my friends, the people I'm friends with, are neurodivergent. It's the people I get on with the most. It doesn't have to be musicians or whatever. It's really funny. And yeah, I agree with you that I'm glad we're at this place in time that we can allow ourselves to do different things. And it's acceptable to do that. To where people are doing art selling it on websites or wherever they can, and people are buying their art, whether it's niche. I mean, my daughter did that and sold stuff. It was amazing art. It was just like how easy it was to do. Back in the day, it would have been really hard to do that. And like us for music, we've got access. We can do this here, sitting in 2 different continents. We can have access to people around the world to produce with, to write with, to sing with, to place with. It's such an amazing time. There's the dark side of technology, but I think we have to look at the good side of it, that it has made us connect with so many people and make the world a more beautiful place because we can create these things together as a community, as churches or whatever it is. We're expanding that, and these songs wouldn't be there without those connections. And if I would just sat in my little bubble, there's probably not a lot of people that I could write with or produce with or learn from. And so I'd be still stuck in that little rut of writing these little mediocre songs. But now, having had those opportunities to learn from people and to do those things, it's like, yeah, it can level up to this game. So embrace it, look for it. If people have been out of music for a while, really, if this is a passion, even if we just do it as a hobby, carve out some time. You're working for what? To, pay the bills. But that hobby can also pay too. We also have to have that creativeness, because one of the things we found here in Scotland is some schools are not performing as well. And when you look at those schools, they don't have music programs as good. The drama, things like that are not high priority. So you take out that creativity and you take out the academia as well. You have to have both to balance those things. Creativity fuels academia. And we can have work, yes, but we also need playtime too. It helps fuel it. We can release our tensions. We can release our passions. If you're learning an instrument, do it. Get to an open mic, play it. A lot of these places, nobody cares if you're just starting out. They'll see your growth. And they'll see those things. And anybody that's negative, they're not worthy of your time. They're not worthy of your song. Just move on. Find people that are, whether you're just starting out or you're seasoned, find those people that will cheer with you and they will encourage your growth. And that's what I think the professional attitude is not how much money you make, but the attitude of being able to sit at the table, but also being able to pass on these skills and be able to support anybody that's coming up. Yes, we will critique, but critique in a positive way. To say, okay, here's some mistakes you're making. This is how you make it right. And just have that attitude. And that's what I believe makes one a professional.
Beauty is not optional. It's something that we really do need. And it's not just a luxury item. Mm-hmm. And I think that's such a beautiful insight too about education and what an incredible impact it has, because you start to wither on the vine when you don't have anything to contribute aesthetically. The massive importance of being someone who's building into other people and a joy to spend time with makes so much more of an impact than whether or not you're just really good at something. And obviously we want to be good at it. We want to continue to build our craft, but we want to be good to be around too. And so I think that's what's so beautiful about this opportunity with independent artists now being able to get out there in the world and contribute and not just be another commodity, but be people with incredible stories like what we've just heard. That's great. I'll say amen to that. One of the points you just brought up was that about be good to be around. And that's the key. I've worked with some people and they were the best at what they did, but they were horrible to be around. Most people at this level want to work with people that they can get on with. It's about who you are as a person, not what you can do. And one of the things that, the networking, learning really how to network. I've always been a really good networker, now realizing what we do. That it's about coming into the room and letting people know who you are. And once they know who you are, they're far more likely to work with you. Even if your skills are not the top level, you're much more likely to get the gig because of who you are, not necessarily what you can do. It's so true. And I think it's modeled for us that those with great power and lots of money can do whatever they want and behave the way that they want. But at the end of the day, when you get out of the limelight, the reality is that the people who go the farthest and who really get the best opportunities are those who've shown that they really do want to be great people, and they want to be someone that people want to be around. And then those people who are steps ahead of them, those are the same people that want to hang out with those people.
Absolutely.
And so it really does matter who you are and how you behave and how kind and generous you are. And so on the days when we feel like that might not be true anymore, it really is still true.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, and this has been one of those times when it's been really cool to hang out with somebody.
Oh, yeah. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Bob. This has just been really great. Thanks for being on Second Verse.
Oh, thank you very much. I don't know if you want to do this later on, but I've got this Indian flute here, and I was going to demonstrate right quick.
Absolutely. Let's go for it.
I bought this in Cherokee, Oklahoma. I wanted to buy a Native American, I'll say Cherokee, because that's my wife's family are actually some Cherokee, because she's from the States. I wanted to buy one of these flutes, and so I went in and I bought it, and he said, have you played anything like that? And he showed me what the scale was, and he says, a pentatonic scale. I said, oh, right. And so then, I'll give this for aesthetics. This is what I played. And he said to me, wow, that really does sound Indian. I said, really? He said, yes, it really does sound Native American. I said, that's funny. It's the theme tune to Braveheart.
Oh, that's great. I love that. Well, thank you for that.
You're welcome. No worries.
What a powerful conversation with Bob Strachan. His story reminds us that music isn't just what we do. It's how we heal, grow, and connect with others. Here are just a few takeaways. First, rediscovery starts with a single step. Bob reconnected with his creativity during lockdown by joining songwriting groups online. Just saying yes opened new doors. Next, healing fuels creativity. Bob's deeply personal journey of grieving his father and finding emotional release through music allowed his creativity and even his vocal abilities to flourish. And then your story is part of your strength. Whether he's sharing songs or simply being present in his local music community, Bob embraces his full story, including his neurodivergence, as part of what makes his work resonate. So now it's time for your action steps, StoryBrand style. In StoryBrand, we talk about being the guide, not just the hero. And a good guide has authority and empathy. Think about your own artist story. What challenges have you overcome? How could your past struggles give you credibility and connection with your audience now? That's not baggage. It's your superpower. Your story doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful. If you need help figuring out how to communicate that in your artist brand or website, I'd love to help you through Attitude Creativity. If this episode moved you, inspired you, and made you laugh, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. That helps more indie artists find their way back to their second verse.